Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Purple Breakdown. I am your host, Alex, and I'm so excited to be back here on another episode of the Purple Breakdown with you, podcast covering the Baltimore Ravens. Hope everyone is having a great Tuesday and is enjoying the start of the NFL Combine as it continues to get more in, and interviews are coming out for all teams and organizations. And that's what we're here to discuss today is the press conferences that Jesse Minter and Eric DeCosta held today, because there's some very large news that's coming out of that today. And honestly, it's news I wanted to hear. It is a day of thank God, because it is such a big day with news coming out for the Ravens. And I just want to jump right into it because I'm that excited about it. I love the news that I've been hearing. I got to watch both the press conferences for Jesse Minter and Eric DeCosta, and honestly, larger news comes out of DeCosta. So we're going to start there with DeCosta. And first off, big point that DeCosta made and was asked around today was his relationship with Lamar Jackson and how the contract extension talks are going with him. And he went right into it and plainly said, look, they're occurring. We're having them right now. But as you know, in the past, it's between Lamar and him, and that he's not going to let that out much. It's going to be very tight-lipped. It's going to continue going that way. And so don't expect to get constant updates about it other than these big press conferences like this where it is talked about and asked about. But he's not going to go out of his way to talk about it, and Lamar's not going to go out. They're going to keep it private. But he was asked, do you expect a contract to get done with Lamar? And he stressed how much Lamar was involved in the hiring process for the coaches and how important Lamar is to this team, and that he said definitely that he thinks a contract extension is going to get done. And this is amazing news. I love hearing this. This is one thing that the Ravens needed. It can open up so much cap space with Lamar getting this contract extension, and hearing him saying, yeah, I definitely think that a contract extension is going to get done with Lamar. That's what we need to hear. That's one of the things that was needed to be said. And I love hearing this. It's great news. It's one of the big good news coming out that needed to be heard, needed to be said, especially after Linderbaum rejecting that first contract. And the second news coming out on that is with Linderbaum. And Costa was asked up there what he thought about Tyler Linderbaum, and he straight up said Linderbaum is the best center in the league. That's the belief of the Ravens organization, that Linderbaum is the best center in the league. And I would say he is definitely one of the best centers in the league with how much he's shown and the talent he's shown, being a multi-time Pro Bowler already. And so I look at it, and he's definitely one of the best centers in the league. And I would agree in the assessment of being the best center in the league, especially with the scheme and how well he fits for the Ravens and being the center linchpin of that offensive line. So I understand where they're coming from saying, yeah, he's the best center in the league. He fits so well with the team. He plays like a Raven. He is a Raven. And they asked any news going forward with Linderbaum and his contract extension, and DeCosta came out and said that the Ravens front office and organization has now offered Tyler Linderbaum a market resetting contract. To me, this sounds like that $20 million a year contract, that market resetting for the centers, and every single lineman's about to be looking at this and going, oh boy, Linderbaum just got paid that much. That's the new standard. Pay me now too. And this is such good news to hear also along with the Lamar Jackson news, because hearing that Linderbaum has now been offered a market resetting contract hopefully means he's getting all the money he wants. He understands how big he is and important he is to the Ravens, and feels the love coming his way, and will say, I love it. I want to stay here. I'm going to accept this offer, and I'm going to stay a Raven forever long this contract goes out. I had accepted already that most of the cap space expansion would go towards Linderbaum, and I'm fully believing it should, and I really hope that he accepts this new contract. It's something I really wanted to hear, something I'm very glad to hear, and I hope everyone else is really excited to hear this. So hopefully in the next few days coming, we get that magical news coming out that Linderbaum has accepted that contract offer and is staying a Raven. I don't want to see him going anywhere else. Other piece of news going into with players that DeCosta was asked about, and I mean, he was asked a lot about players and how they view Kyle Hamilton and draft picks that they've made in the past, and we'll go into that in a second. But the other big one that he made with current players, he was asked about Marlon Humphrey and what he thought about Marlon Humphrey and whether or not he'll be on the team next year. And DeCosta came out and said, yeah, he really likes Marlon Humphrey. He likes the way he plays and he likes him as a player, and that he thought that Marlon would be on the team this next year. And I think this is something we've talked about in the past where I've said trade or cut Marlon Humphrey to open up cap space, especially with how he's performed over these past few years in the play of his going down and not playing up to what he's expected. And to me, it sounds like they may have sat down with Minter and Anthony Weaver and gone through and talked about what his role in the Ravens is and what he is expected going forward, and that they will be keeping him around now. But if they're going to be keeping him around on the one-year contract he exists on and the amount of money that he's being paid, I think if you're going to keep him now, DeCosta says he likes him and wants to keep him and expects him to stay there, then I think it's time that you do a contract extension with Marlon, where the contract extension part of it is the salary goes down. I think that needs to be part of it right now. And his role needs to be changed because he's not the number one cornerback that we all thought he would be this past year. I think Nate Wiggins will be stepping up into that role more. And if Marlon is going to stay, a contract extension is in order where he takes a pay cut. So it opens up more cap space for the Ravens to operate with. And it makes it a much more even deal. And that's what I'd like to see going forward with Marlon Humphrey if he stays on the team. Now, the other news coming out of this is that DeCosta was asked if they feel like they have enough cap space right now, and DeCosta was very adamant, like, yeah, we would always like to have more cap space to work with, but he believes right now he's pretty confident with the cap space that they do have and going forward into the free agency and being competitive in free agencies. So that's good news to hear. I still think I agree with him. The want to have more cap space, I think they need to get a little more cap space because you need to bring in more players in depth at free agency. Again, that taking the proven talent that the Ravens like taking in free agency that can add depth immediately and add talent and impact it immediately. That's what they need to do in this free agency, and they need a little more cap space to work with. That's where some trades or Lamar Jackson contract extension and if Marlon Humphrey stays, a new contract that opens up more cap space would help and go a lot towards that. The other news that going in, and this is the combine. So they're going to be asking a lot about drafting, and the Ravens do have 11 draft picks this year so far. And when looking at this, they're asking, well, what are you looking for going into this? And DeCosta's he was very plain in going, he believes in the way that he's been taught by Ozzie Newsome and how to draft is best available, that they're creating their full draft board where they're going to rank all the players 1 through 200, that talk about the top 200 players in the draft, spend like 30 minutes or more on them per those 200. And as they go through the draft, it'll come to the Ravens in the draft and they will pick based off that board. And now, of course, they're going to do it in such a way where positional matter will be needed, because you can't just willy-nilly go, hey, well, this is our best player on the draft board, but he's a position we don't need at all. You do need to take a position that you do need. And so he emphasized that position need and the need to cover positions that the Ravens are a little weaker at right now will definitely be valued in the draft, but he's not going to go away from drafting what is best available. And I like hearing this because this is what's been so successful for the Ravens in the past, drafting off what is best available, and it's worked really well for them. This is how you get Kyle Hamilton. This is how you get Malachi Starks. This is how you get Teddy Buchanan. This is how you get Tyler Linderbaum and all the other big stepping piece forwards, A. Flowers and Likely and everyone else that is the next big step forward for the Ravens. And again, some of these guys will be going away in free agency, specifically possibly Isaiah Likely, but this is this is how the Ravens are successful in the draft and adding depth. And the Ravens are always very good at getting lots of draft picks to work with to add depth. And I'm excited to see that they have 11 picks to work with. And now they didn't go too deep into positions, but positions that they did ask what the Ravens could be looking at here is they did mention specifically increasing the blitz rates and how to put pressure on the quarterback. And DeCosta was very adamant, yeah, the Ravens are going to work on adding depth to the pass rush and getting guys in there that will help bring the pass rush more oomph this next coming year. DeCosta was asked if the Ravens get the chance to take a great next level defensive tackle, would they take the opportunity to do it? And the obvious answer was DeCosta was like, yeah, of course we would take a great next generational defensive tackle if we could. And everyone knows my opinion on that with Peter Woods in the first round, but it's going to be best available. So if that is the best available for the Ravens at the time, then that's what they're going to take. And then the other one that they were asked about was wide receivers and what the Ravens are if the Ravens are looking to add more weapons for Lamar Jackson. And DeCosta was like, well, yeah, of course we are. We're always looking for that, and especially in the draft. And what they're looking for out of that is someone who is able to block, able to have flair for performing when needed, getting those catches when they're needed, even if it's a really tough catch, being able to block, fit into the scheme, being able to read the defenses and be a player. And that really goes into what DeCosta was talking about when what are the Ravens looking for when they're trying to draft a player? And they're looking for someone who's smart, who's disciplined, who's X's and O's, plays like a Raven, has a tough mentality, executes when needed to, and is always trying to find those big plays and executed very well in college. And that's what the Ravens have always looked. What is not changing about this draft is how it operates. The only thing that's really changing about this draft is, in my opinion, really that a whole new coaching staff has come in. And so the schemes that the Ravens run are going to change, and that changes the archetypes of the players that you value. And so with new schemes for the offense and the defense, players that the Ravens may value previously in drafts may be different now. And so that's where you're going to see archetypes that the Ravens target changing. But how they operate the draft is not going to change. And that's really the big news that came out of DeCosta today. And again, the really big news that I loved hearing is that he's confident an extension with Lamar Jackson will happen, and that Tyler Linderbaum has been offered a market-setting deal. Those were the two really big news pieces that I needed to hear, and it really brightened up my day hearing that. Now, Minter also got up in front of the press, and he didn't have as much big news as DeCosta. DeCosta was more the big news point, and Minter reiterated a lot of what DeCosta said. He came out and said, yeah, he believes that Linderbaum is the center of the league, is the best center of the league, and that he is a centerpiece for the Ravens, that he knows how much the Ravens value him and hopes that he can see that and wants to stay, and that the Ravens would like to keep him there. He is definitely looking for more pass rush for the Ravens, and he knows that in general right now the league is blitzing more than it has in years past, and that they need to add depth there, and that's something they would definitely be looking for in the draft. And he even went out and reiterated that the pass rushing and that yeah, they're looking for someone with certain height, certain weight, certain length in the arms, and that may be more of someone shorter. Well, then they have something else to bring to the table. But he was very adamant in looking and saying, like, hey, this is a deep edge draft. Like, there is a deep pass rush here. And so the Ravens have a lot to work with here. And I'm excited to see how they go forward with that. And then went a lot into the coaching staff and how the coaching staff was created, and that it's all meant to balance each other and help bring each other so that they're the best play callers they can be, the best team that they can be, and holding everyone accountable. And the other part that I guess I'll jump back to real quick since I went off topic is that they're really going to focus on building up the O-line and D-line. I went into this right after the Super Bowl talking about how the past two Super Bowls looked a lot the same in how they won, when it was bully ball on the defensive line that got back there and disrupted the quarterback, pass after pass after pass, and just got the quarterback upset. Well, Minter made the same point, saying, look, the past two Super Bowls with both the Seahawks and the Eagles was the same thing, where the O-line was just next level good and the D-line just constantly got back there and wreaked havoc. And that's how you win right now in the league, is off of O-line and D-lines. And so really building off the trenches is where the Ravens need to work out of. And that's what they've been saying this entire time, and what a lot of all of us who do podcasts have been saying the same, and the analysts have been saying. Ravens need to be successful by increasing the O-line and D-line and building off of the trenches. And that's where they'll be going next. So that's most of the big stuff that Minter talked about during this. The other thing that he did say is that he's very excited to be seeing the other side of the ball in drafting, since he really worked with the defense in drafting, and now he's getting to see both, and that he's, as coaches, they're really excited to get the chances to see the combine and to have informal interviews and interviews with players, because that's when they get a little piece into them, and it may not shift the board too much, but it definitely can, and it's a sense of how to get to know someone. And so he's really excited to see that. And I mean, they'll be evaluating tackling and how well tackling works for the teams, both existing players and players that they'll be drafting, because that's one thing the Ravens need to work on. The other last thing I want to touch on that Minter talked about, and it's the one last thing that struck me, is he really said that the AFC North is going through a new transition period, that the AFC North has always been well known for being a tough division to play in, but now it's going through a transition period where you have, I mean, 3 out of the 4 head coaches this past year left their teams, and now you have 3 new head coaches and coaching staffs coming in. And so teams that may have previously been extremely defensively head-minded, like the Steelers and the Browns, and how well they've played there, and the coaches and staffs that have existed there are now changing, and you have new coaches going into the Steelers and Browns, and one being a former Raven, and Tom Munkin, and the offense that he'll try and bring there to the Browns. And so you're going to see, and Mike McCarthy to the Steelers, and so you're going to see new transition period for the AFC North and how these teams operate, and it's going to be something new to experience with for the Ravens, that are teams that they always play close and have always tough games with because they know each other so well, but it's going to be something new, and that you could see new play styles for these teams. And it's a transition period. The only team that may not transition too much will be the Bengals, and that's just because of how their cap space is working and what they're known for in the draft. And I'll be honest, I don't know if they can fix their defense in 1 year. And yes, they may have a high-powered offense when Joe Burrow is healthy, but you still got to look at the defensive side of the ball. And they've put to the test multiple times now, can you win a Super Bowl without a defense? And the answer is no, 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 and no. You win a Super Bowl with a defense. It's not just a saying it's not just a saying that means nothing, that defense wins championships. Defense in the NFL wins championships. It wins the Super Bowls. And that's something that the Ravens have prided themselves on, is being known for having a tough defense. And Jesse Minter's going to bring that back, and expect the draft and the free agency to look a lot at improving the trenches, especially the pass rush, and seeing players step forward. And that's really what Minter talked about today. So that is the big news coming out today for both for the combine, between Eric DeCosta and Jesse Minter, in the press conferences they had. I got a lot of good news out of this today. I liked hearing what I heard, and I hope you all did too, if you guys got a chance to listen in to the press conferences. I'd like to hear what you guys got out of it, what you all got out of it too, and what you took away from it. I just touched on the big major points and my thoughts around them, but I'd like to hear what you guys think going forward. And I that's what makes it so engaging for me, is that I like thinking this is a conversation where I'm not just talking straight into a computer mic and, well, the microphone here, and that you see me talking. I want to hear from you guys. That's why I do this. I do it because I want to talk Ravens, and where I live, there's not a lot of Ravens fans around here, and I want to talk Ravens, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So please comment and talk about it so that I can do this and have a conversation, because that's really really what I like to do, and I want it to be a conversation. I know I'm reiterating a lot here, but that's what makes it exciting for me. So please make sure to do that. But that's all I have for today. So if you are on YouTube and you really like the content that you are seeing here, please think about subscribing and liking the video and leaving a comment. I just went into why comments are so engaging for me and always make my day hearing from you guys. There's always those who persistently comment, and I want to shout out to all of you who do, because you make my day and you make me smile so much. And that's what makes me keep coming back to this. If you're on Spotify, please follow the podcast on Spotify, leave a comment, leave a review. If you can, share with other Ravens fans and people who you think would enjoy this and help the community grow. I want to thank you all so much for joining in and jumping in, and I can't wait to continue watching as the combine starts getting into full swing here, especially in 2 days with the on the field, and I'll be keeping up with it. Thank you all so much for joining in. Have a great rest of your day.